hello. We are joined by lovely Jojo. Hello, Jojo. How are you?
Hello, I hope I am joined.
And we have TV's Karen Dunbar. Hello, Karen.
Hi, everybody. Hello, Bruce, Jojo, and the world.
And the world. Now, it was interesting because we are going to look at cancel culture today. And about 3 seconds ago, I was about to cancel this whole thing because it wouldn't bloody work. That was the problem. But you have a documentary coming out, don't you? The 24th?
I do, Bruce, on Thursday night, called Cancel Dunbar, which I never chose the title for that. Hashtag Cancel Dunbar, which I feel has ominous tones. However, if I don't look at social media and don't look at any media, then I'll never know. That's my theory.
You'll never know what people think or whether you've been cancelled or not.
All of the above. Anything at all.
Do you think
what the price of cheese is?
Well, I think that's actually, as a cheese lover myself, I think that's highly pertinent, and we won't be cancelling such information. Jojo, you've got some very interesting views on cancel culture, and you feel that we can say anything.
I do have, well, interestingly, it did take forever for us to all listen and hear each other, and now we're here. I mean, Karen and I have had a half-hour interview without it ever being recorded, so I might be repeating myself. But it is interesting, Karen, the whole sort of cancel culture idea. And I hate the word cancel culture, but I do think we're all walking on eggshells. Because, you know, that way with comedy, you shouldn't do comedy. You shouldn't try and second guess what other people think is funny. I think it's the same with cancel. You shouldn't try and second guess what people get offended at. But people are getting offended left, right and centre. So you're left with what can I say? What are the things that you think you'll come up against?
Well, firstly, where do I begin? Firstly, it's not necessarily as a comedian I'm looking at it, because I mean, I don't do a lot of comedy. I've never came from a stand-up background, so it might seem like a bit of a contradiction. I'm much more looking at this through a personal lens. Now, of course, it is within comedy and within the work that I do and have done. It's mainly retrospective, but personally, the journey started from me thinking, I don't know what to say to anybody anymore. This isn't about what I do in stand-up, because I very rarely do stand-up. It's about how to interact with my fellow human being, what's to be done. What you said there, Jojo, about it being, and I've never even thought of that, that why should we presume what will offend somebody else? I think there are certain sort of obvious name-callings and terms that we know are offensive, and they sit where they are, and I think they're relevant. But the vast majority of things that I see that are becoming offensive now, I'm curious about. And I'm not trying to couch that in any way, because I'm not enraged. I'm genuinely curious as to what is happening with the people who are offended and with the people who don't want to cause offence. I don't want to say there's sides, but it's like everything, there are sides. So I want to hear both sides of that and present that, and that's hopefully what the documentary does, and present that to the general public and say, what'd you think?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
And it's good to hear all different perspectives and different sides to it. And you mean, I think you said about with chewing the fat, obviously you think there's things that were done then that you wouldn't have done now?
Aye, but not much.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the sketches, you'll see it in the documentary that's been cut, is Old Betty. And it's not because of any sexual content, it's because she uses a racist, pejorative term.
Yeah.
Bobby.
And, and we know, what the Bobbies were like when they came over here from Bobby Onia.
But just to clarify, you're using the word Bobby, the slang for doodle in Glasgow.
A doodle is slang for schnoodle.
Well,
and
Jack Roodle, that kind of thing.
You're talking Latin. What's a doodle and a bobby?
Well, a doodle's a penis, and a bobby is slang for a penis. But the funny thing is, and we've discussed that with that character now, if you look at people who lose the veneer of their social graces to dementia and all that kind of stuff, and we've discussed that because my father's going through it. But those kind of things would probably come up in a visit in a home, if you see what I mean.
Aye. And one of the things I learned at TMO, which is Television and Media Operations, that the BBC have got down in London, is that context is everything. So if somebody was saying that in an old folks' home, I'm not saying Bobby, but, using racist derogatory terms, they're saying that in an old folks' home and they're going through dementia, or somebody's going through dementia, then what are you to do with that? I think, and this might sound, airy-fairy, arty-farty, but let it be said, compassion is key as well. Context is key, but compassion is also key. It's who's saying it, why are they saying it, and how do we deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
So not only to have a compassionate view, but to be able to have a compassionate response. So not only hear it compassionately, but respond to it compassionately. And that's what's no fucking happening. And I'm going to swear there, because that is what I feel is the problem. Not who's right and who's wrong, but where is the compassion for all in this? For people who have you want to give people the right to say what it is that they're saying within context, and you want to give people the right to say, this is hurting me, this is harming me. The difference between harm and offence, I think, is the nuance that's in that as well. So, ask
the
me
other
another
thing that
question
always
before I
fascinates me
rant.
now is the thing that fascinates me now as well is, knowing as comedians, you read the room, you decide what you're going to say in front of certain groups of people. But we do that ordinarily.
Absolutely.
We'll speak differently with some friends as we do others. But the idea now that WhatsApp groups or private conversations that are overheard and recorded and then given out to the public, they were never meant for public consumption. And yet there's retrospectively people being charged or held up to account for conversations they thought they were having in private. And are we getting to that stage where we're not even allowed to have that because, whether you're joking or... I just don't know where the line is in that respect.
No, and I think, again, to take that into the question, the query of what is the context? Why are we saying... Firstly, there's why are we saying it? And secondly, who are we saying it to? Mm-hmm. So there are things that I would say with a handful of people, I would never dream of saying... Now, why is that? And it's because I'll have time with those people. I'll have spent a lot of time with those people, so they know me hysterically, and historically. They know me. They know where I'm coming from. I don't need to explain where I'm, my context to those people. But I'm telling you, it's like 5 folk, my oldest pals kind of thing, my closest people round about me. And likewise, they'll say that same kind of stuff to me. And when I say that, I'm not talking about things that you would be aboard at. I'm just talking about talking without filters. I mean, the idea that anybody can talk without filters in this day and age, says the 50-year-old, in this day and age.
When I was a boy.
I think that's part of the problem as well. So I mean, there's a lot of different angles to it, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused as well. Know that they're daft, but they're overwhelmed with information and inflammatory views on things. Where's the compassion in that? I can't get away from that, because that's the answer. The answer isn't cancelling this or letting this go. It's applying compassion, and that's the real challenge, because I'm totally off on one now, but to apply compassion, you've got to have compassion for yourself. A lot of folk don't have that.
No, absolutely. And it feels like there's less compassion, that people are feeling really sort of righteous.
But people
and
are scared.
Go, that's absolutely outrageous and it shouldn't be allowed. And they don't go back a couple of layers. And I know in green rooms with other comedians, I mean, we can say, I think what would be deemed horrific things to each other, which, like you say, because we know each other, we know within the context, we don't mean it. But as comedians, we try to go to the darkest place, to the most dangerous place, to try and get a laugh. Mm-hmm. And we do that in the context and the privacy of our own conversation. Mm-hmm. But there is a situation now happening that if somebody did, for whatever reason, decide to record that and release it, then we would be held up for that. And I kind of go, I don't know if that's fair, because we didn't you know, people don't historically know us or know the situation, and compassion comes into it so hugely, because the less people know you personally, the less compassion they have anyway.
But don't you think one of the big problems now is people's personal assumption, or some may say arrogance, in which it is their human right to take offence to everything, absolutely everything, because they want to take offence, because they want to be seen doing the right thing. So where is the compassion then on the complainer's part for, as you say, not adjudicating the situation, what was said when it was said? You know, just expunging everything to the history vaults and whitewashing over everything, for want of a better thing, isn't going to change the past, because the past is still going on. Why, I don't understand why people are scared of learning from the past. It's almost as though, well, we'll have to shut this down, we'll have to cancel it, we have to be seen as... It's a head-on-a-stick culture, if you see what I mean. They want some kind of prize.
Yeah.
Well, and that, if that's censorship, then has always existed. It's just because that's what it is. So it just depends who the censori is. No. And I said that in a vaguely Eastern accent there, and then panicked. Do you know? There's exactly what happened in my head there, because it reminded me of samurai. And I thought, oh, that's dodgy.
But there was a couple of things on
Is
the day.
that dodgy?
There was a couple of things on the day, because I happen to be one of the people in the documentary, and we had a few conversations about that. Should we be saying this? Should we be saying that? Should we be saying... And it gets to the point where it's like, well, what is the point of actually examining this? Because when you forensically go over everything, like it's Language Lab Taggart Central, it kind of loses a lot of the nonsense associated with it. But it was really interesting that day, because you'd said to me, oh, I don't know if we should say that, or I don't know if the tone of this is it. And I said similar. So where does it all stop?
Yeah. And I don't think I answered your... Firstly, I don't think I answered your first question there.
Could you, love? Please.
Which is really... Come on now. Which is really relevant, is where's the compassion for the censors? So, again, without sounding too Buddhist or anything like that, but that level of censorship, I believe, is stoked by fear. And I think a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people are outraged because of something else that they don't know is going on in them. And again, maybe that sounds very arrogant, but let it stand. And it's to be outraged at somebody saying something away out here, lets them feel a sort of venting of that, whatever that angst is, that suffering is, but it's not actually about that. Example being, see if my mother said anything that was racist. Now, when I say that, let me stress that my mother wasn't a racist, but my mother was born in 1927. So she used terms that came from that time in a very general way, and I couldn't fucking wait to jump down her throat and correct her. Now, there was a sliver of that was coming from a place of justice, but the majority of that was coming from the fact that she didn't let me out last weekend. And I was raging with her, and I couldn't wait to get to set her right, to pin her. And it's that energy that's under that. It's how do we love the pinners? You just got to. I don't know how. But that energy, it's got to come from that place, because if it comes from the same place that they're coming from, then, you know, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
So, Karen, going...
You said quoting the Bible now.
Oh, wee Jesus. And it's so close to... What I was going to say, Karen, because obviously you're more known now for your acting work, is stand-up something that you are going to go back to? And if so...
No.
No, right,
no.
Okay.
And that's nothing to do with cancel culture. I can't stick it. I've never enjoyed doing stand-up. I haven't done much of it at all. And so a lot of the reason that is from total lack of confidence and lack of practice in it. It's not that I'm not going to do that kind of fawning thing. If I don't think I'm funny, you know, whether I do or whether I don't depends on what sketch I'm watching and who I'm talking to and how I'm feeling that day and whether I'm pre-menstrual. So that's never an either or. But stand-up makes me ill. So the short answer's no. And that's nothing to do with cancel culture, in inverted commas. That's to do with...
In June and Northern Moor, I spotted something, Karen. You're doing Karen Dunbar's
I'm
big
DJing.
night out.
I'm DJing, which I love.
How offensive. I will not turn up to that. I'm a barn dancer. How dare you?
I only dance with bands.
Will you be using the hits of Mary Keane?
Mary Canny will be there through the medium of TTF, the time frequency, but also from the solo, one of her tracks, which was Come On. I don't know if you remember that, circa 93, but that's one of my top tunes.
Oh, I already have.
Have.
Come on. It's the stress of today.
So no, I'm DJing on the
fab.
the 10th of June, and I really want that. That was meant to be. It was just when the nightclubs shut again. It was meant to be on, and partly I was like, no, don't shut it. But another side of me was like, we need to do it. So I really want to make it a huge summer party on the 10th of June. We were going to do it in February, and I says, I'm too fear to reschedule it in case it gets shut again. Yeah. So let's do it in the summer.
So, Karen, going back to the documentary, what kind of people have you spoken to about their experiences of cancer culture, or indeed their opinions?
Well, speaking to yourself, Bruce. So
Clearly.
Spoke to people like yourself and other comedians as well, who some of them were experiencing that. I spoke to the guys who are stand-ups as well for trigonometry, who are very pro free speech. I spoke to a guy who runs a diversity course and sat in on that course, which was very interesting. A lot of it was really useful. A lot of it I didn't agree with. Mm-hmm. And that, again, from a personal point of view, with, as far as I'm aware, no malice, though of course there'll be an unconscious bias, because every human being has an unconscious bias. I mean, I remember realising, I can't remember, somebody was talking about Rangers or Celtic, and I honestly can't remember what it is, because I was brought up in Ayr. I'm an Ayr United supporter, so there's none of that bias in me, she said. However, when they said that, I remember in my head thinking, bigot, they're a bigot. And then another voice, still in my head, says, you're a bigot. And I was like, how am I a bigot? When you have the conversations with yourself. It says, Cam, you're bigoted against bigots. You hate people who hate people. So what is the fucking difference?
Yeah.
What is the difference? So whether that shouldn't be allowed and that should be allowed, if I'm coming for that kind of energy, there's a difference, of course, between standing up for yourself, whatever side that's on, standing up for yourself. But the vehemence in it and the vitriol, I would say, is about something else for each party. To not be able to consider the other person's point of view. And please don't let me put across that I do that all the time. See, when I get caught up in my own stuff and my own fear, I can't see the other person's side. But if I can manage to take a step back for it, and usually it's one of my pals pulling me by the fucking shirt collar and saying, look, this might be what's happening here, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever thought about this? And I need that objectivity for somebody when I feel that I'm attacked, when I feel that I'm being ostracised or controlled. Mm-hmm. And that is a human trait.
I think, and that's so right, you know, that sort of human trait, because like you say, we do have, whether it's unconscious bias, but, you know, we know what we like as humans, you know, we know what people we like, we know what television, what music. And so the things that we like ourselves, if people like something different, you kind of do go, I don't know how you can like that. I think the difficulty comes when we start saying, you're not allowed to like that. Mm-hmm. And that's where it seems to be at the moment. It's like, oh, I don't understand why they like that, or, you know, or why they have that religion, or why they have that belief. But it's the thing now, the real feeling of people saying, I don't like that, and so you're not allowed to like it either. And I don't like that word, so you can't use it either. Yeah, I think that's a societal issue across the board. And where I notice it most is in politics. There seems to be no political respect for difference at all, which is a whole other thing. But Karen, the last thing that I want to ask you, your name is Karen, you are a Karen, but are you a Karen, if you catch my drift? And were you offended when the Karens came to town, when the Karen float arrived? Quite genuinely, because a load of people that I know called Karen did. Yeah. I think the word I would use, Bruce, is crestfallen. Really? As you can imagine, that's a word I use on a daily basis. I thought, no. It was more like that, because I quite like my name, and I quite like, you know, my full name, Dunbar. It's got a ring to it. Yes. Yeah. There's Dunbar. You've never been a Kaz or anything like that? No, I mean, my pals, Kaz, you're right, Kaz, when they've drunk 7 bottles of Diamond White.
But I mean, it'll only be people for the last century that have any idea what I'm talking about there.
Ketamine Kaz.
That's oh no, that was a moniker that I was proud to sew into a hanky. So I was more jaded, but also I found the humour in it, because I don't think I'm a Karen, but as the older I get, I'm getting a wee bit Carney. I can't deny that. At the moment, I'm like, state of these bloody roads, now. See the holes in these roads? This is terrible. How are you meant to drive your car in this? I'm going through that every time I'm in the motor, and then I'm like, oh, Hen, you're 50, and, you know, you're becoming slowly fecally incontinent.
Well, I think we've gone as far as we can with counselling today.
I don't think there's any... How do you push the boundary on that? It'll go right through the gusset.
Well, absolutely. Prolapse is for everyone.
With compassion.
Absolutely. Compassionate prolapses with oust.
The Compassionate Prolapse by Maeve Binchy.
Free candle with first edition.
Oh, that was, you got me there. I clapped my hands like a fucking old mummy.
Karen, I think that all that left to be said is thank you very much for your time. Thank you for
You're
bearing
welcome,
through
folks.
the technical troubles. Jojo,
No
do
bother.
you have a final word you'd like to offer?
I was going to swear, but I won't. No, an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Karen. It's delightful to see you in person, although through a screen. And yes, I don't see you as a Karen, and I don't know who came up with a Karen. I think we should find them and annihilate them, because that seems compassionate in my mind.
A compassionate annihilation.
Yeah.
Aye, I'm up for that.
Aye, come on, let's kick Karen in the cars. 2-1 the Rangers.
All the Celtics,
Oh,
all
aye.
the Ayr Uniteds,
Or the Hibs, or the Dundees, or the steak and gravy pies. Karen,
all teams.
a pleasure as always.
Likewise,
Thank you
folks.
so
Great
much.
to see you.
Lovely
Mwah.
to speak to you.
And you. All the best.
Bye, doll.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.